Hello and welcome back to my YouTube video. Today I'm doing my top lane tier list for patch 13.22. If you enjoy the content, like, subscribe, and let's get into it. To remember, this patch did not see a huge amount of changes. They were mostly readjustments to the likes of Mundo, Rammus, and Tahm Kench. These champions were either overshot in terms of the amount of power they were given, or undershot in the likes of Mundo and Rammus' case. So, to begin with, I want to talk about Gragas. He had adjustments towards his ultimate and his E. His E got a buff early on into the game, but another very high haste builds. His E now no longer gives 3 seconds on contact, but gives 6% of the remaining cooldown as refund. So early on into the game, it really benefits for the likes of jungle Gragas, but when you're really only using this ability to land a Q or confirm like a gank, you're not using it off CD in the top lane, it doesn't do it as much. It does help definitely in teamfight scenarios where you can very much use this ability of cooldown, but yeah, for the most part, it's not a huge buff towards top lane, and as top lane, you do tend to pick up the likes of Cosmic Drive and Lucid, which then really amps up your haste, and if you are picking up more haste upon this, like the likes of Roa, which has haste in its mythic stat line, something like a Zonya, something like a Banshee, then yeah, you can end up in a scenario where his E is nerfed later on into a game. It mainly punishes the likes of the Black Cleaver, Axiom Arc, really high haste builds, where it has a really kind of weird animation. Those builds are gone now, as you can't really achieve those kind of things. But yeah, Gragas definitely not as strong as he was in the top lane. The power ended up being slightly down, so he is going to stay in the C tier. His R did receive a cast time reduction, but it was very minimal. So yeah, not a huge buff here. If anything, a slight nerf towards top lane, a bit of a buff towards jungle. So Mundo is going to move back into the A tier. He was over nerfed last patch. I kind of said they were going to end up doing this, but Riot obviously thought that they had found the right metrics. Obviously not. The champion has been rebuffed to make up for the fact that he had a huge win rate lost. He lost like 1% on his E health scaling and lost 20% on missing health AD scaling. Overall, ended up being like a 4 or 5% win rate drop. They buffed him back up by 0.4% on the E health scaling. It's put him in a bit more of a healthy spot. He is very much still low elo skewed. This champion does struggle really like a large amount in Diamond Plus, as most people tend to pick up better builds, understand the functionality of the champion, and stuff like this. So yeah, Mundo gonna stay in the A tier, higher, close to the S tier, low elo, and high elo, he does fall down towards the B tier direction. So yeah, keep that in mind. Rammus is going to move into the B tier. He had a 10 armor increase on his W this patch after a relatively large nerf towards him in the previous patch, which was Q damage down, W armor, and magic resist scaling down, and flat armor down. They obviously have gone back with that and given him 10 armor. I would only ever recommend picking this champion into AD top laners, but when you have the likes of Malphite, who is very much stronger than Rammus in that regard, as like an anti-AD top laner. I mean, Rammus's functionality as an anti-AD champion comes from the fact that he can really easily output a lot of damage when people are auto-attacking him. Malphite's functionality is more of an all-in engager and more of an attack speed cripple, gives him more AoE presence within fights, but yeah, Rammus definitely benefits from the fact that if the enemy team has a lot of auto attackers, then he is stronger in that regard. Malphite, however, does benefit from abilities and stuff like this, where he can kind of punish them for just how much armor he has as like a baseline with the passive. Tahm Kench is going to move down to the A tier. He really was a big benefactor of the fact that he gained a lot of health scaling on his passive. It went up by 2%, I believe, and they have brought it down by 1% now on this patch. He still has lost the base damage, so it's put him more in line with where he was in the previous patches. Does just scale a bit better with heart still, and heavy health items, so makes him even more low elo skewed. I would not recommend playing Tahm Kench in high elo. However, if you are someone who understands the functionality of the kit, how you can kind of play around tower a lot more, that is something which you definitely can work around in high elo, dragging people towards your tower, even running things like phase rush into certain matchups. But yeah, for the most part, you are running the grasp, you are running heart still, you're playing the champion in low elo. He does a huge amount of damage early on in the game, does fall off over time as there are champions which can heavily kite him, or just actively play into his higher amounts of HP. The likes of Gwen, very much still a good performer into this matchup later on into the game. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Time Crunch though, still a good A tier pick. I wanted to move a couple of champs into the S+ tier for the top lane though, and the first one which I want to move up is Camille. Camille has very much been just a good top laner for a while. Ever since she received the buffs towards her passive and her E-AD ratio, she has been in a very good spot. I would very much recommend picking up this champion. She's very fun to play. She has a decent amount of good matchups. She can struggle into some champions, the likes of Renekton, especially in elite play, can really prove to be quite hard for her. And low elo, the likes of Teemo, do match up to Camille quite well. Even in high elo, Teemo can match up to this champion, as being able to blind Camille's main ability in her Q can be very punishing and allow for either assistance or just for an all-way out-winning duel. But yeah, Camille for the most part, especially if you're going with the likes of Triforce and you're picking up Divine Cinderas in the game, which you do need to go with, then yeah, she's in a very good spot. Just make sure that you aren't defaulting onto Divine Cinder every game, as Triforce does allow for a huge amount of more damage and allows you to be able to split push a lot more effectively. The other champ which I want to talk about, Poppy is in a really good spot, has been for a while now. Got a couple of changes not too long ago, which were towards her W, I believe. And she's just been a really good top laner. She answers a lot of the meta at the moment. Lots of high mobility champions, which she can effectively ground and just disarm for the most part. Being able to slam someone into a wall, doing a huge amount of damage, and being able to follow up with a Q is a combo which does an unhealthy amount of damage at the moment, and can be really punishing for a lot of champions. So yeah, I definitely recommend picking up Poppy as one of the primary tanks at the moment. Alongside that, Cassante, I'm going to put in the S+ tier. This is mostly for elite play though. I'd still recommend either learning this champion before playing it in ranked, or just sticking away from it, especially if you're in low elo, as the champion can still suffer early on into the game, and you can very much be punished by someone who understands the champion and what the functionality of it is. In low elo, the likes of Ornn can be a lot more effective, as he has guaranteed scaling in his passive items, but you do have to be aware that yeah, Ornn is also a relatively hard champion to perfect, but you can pick him up a lot more easily than the likes of Cassante, who does require a decent amount of games to be put into him. So yeah, those are the three tanks which are definitely really excelling at the moment. The likes of Malphite, obviously really good into AD comps. Maokai, still a really strong top laner at the moment. Definitely works into a lot of things. Mordekaiser is very close to being dropped down a tier. However, he's still relatively strong in low to mid elo. He has very good dueling potential, and ever since they gave him the movement speed increase in his passive form, then yeah, he is in a very good spot. So well, in a decent spot for low elo. The likes of Riftmaker does probably need to be buffed though to really have him kind of like rise up to a top S tier pick again at some point. Yeah, other than this, there are lots of viable top laners at the moment. For the most part, you can play most things. It's still very much matchup dependent, and obviously if you are ganked by jungle, then it can result in very harsh games where you are the one who is primarily getting punished. But yeah, if you can alleviate pressure, understand like what your role is within the game, then yes, you can kind of play around it. I am currently playing mid lane. I think mid lane opens up a lot more functionality around the map and allows for a lot more playmaking. But yeah, if you are very much still interested in top lane and functioning as a top laner, but yes, looking into like being able to kind of provide what your team needs is very much still an important thing. And don't be disheartened if you end up losing because of a factor outside of your control. Some games are just like that. But yeah, just learn from your mistakes and try again. I think that is just the best thing to do at the moment. Hopefully preseason brings along some good changes. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next one. Goodbye.